Hey everybody, it's ProbablyRed. So there is a new campaign out. So spoiler alerts ahead. Maybe you played the draft event that just happened, kind of the Scion event, Scion draft event for Awakening. But yeah, there's a new campaign coming to Eternal. Campaign set right here. We're gonna go over all the cards, say what we kind of think here. Mostly like in reference to the expedition format and like what I've seen on my part of the ladder basically. And let's get into it. Clodagh Ascending. Okay, so already we got a 2-cost double fire. So 2 fire, 3/1. Explore Gunslinger. Okay, so that's it, baseline. If you got 2 fire influence, that's it. So this card's kind of made for mono fire because it's got 3 abilities. One that requires you to have 4 fire influence, one that requires 6, and one that requires 8 fire influence. So for 4, she gets to plunder every time she attacks. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Like, that can be pretty crazy. So the card that you drew for that turn, you could just plunder it by attacking. And she's got aggressive stat line, so they block. Like, you might be trading up, but at the same time, you could be trading down. But still, aggressively statted. Let's see what our next ability is. If you got 6 fire, +2/+2 in quick draw. Now that makes this unit a beast for a 2-drop. But I mean, you gotta have 6. That's a lot of fire influence. Let's see. Kind of comparable to Corrosive Dagger. I think that nets you. That would. I think. Is it triple fire now? Dang it! I gotta look. Oh my gosh. Corrosive Daggers for every 3, right? Man, I hope I'm not just like. We'll just go to fire, real quick, real quick. It's for every 2. See, I'm a madman. Okay. Back to it. Back to it. So it'd be like getting 3 grenadines off of the Corrosive Dagger was the point I was trying to make. Can't believe I didn't remember it's 2. I haven't played fire in a little while. Anyways, so that makes this unit pretty beastly for a 2-drop. I mean, you're attacking in for 5. It kind of gives the unit kind of an evasion / protection ability. Like, you can just attack in unhindered, unless you're attacking into stuff with really high health and, you know, a decent attack. And then finally, at 8 fire influence, when you play a treasure trove, your units get +2 attack. So that includes herself, and on top of that, she's able to create treasure troves. The only thing is treasure troves are not fast. I'm pretty darn sure. Yeah, last time I checked, treasure troves are not fast, and I don't even know if I can tell in this screen. So you have to play them beforehand, which means it could be the one that you created from last turn, which is worth noting. So it gives you that decision: do I save it or not? I think this is probably gonna definitely at least see play. Like, it's a solid 2-drop. I think there's a lot of competition for 2-drops, but in fire, but for mono fire, I think it's an easier decision to pick Clodagh Ascending. Clodagh. Anyways, I think it's an easier decision to pick Clodagh because, like, it's just a very impressive stat line, and it gives you more incentive to play modifier, which is interesting. There's a whole cycle of the units that kind of promote the mono factions. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next card. I think this is a pretty impressive card overall. It's a great 2-drop. If it was legendary or normal set, it'd be kind of hard to pick this together, but like, if you get the set, You already get a playset. All rarities are the same in this set, basically. It's just like complexity and like symbology of a rarity symbol and actualizing like what a rarity symbol means, I guess, is like the point of having rarity symbols in this. Okay. So here's a 2-cost fire, and also, of course, if you're crafting, if you bought the set and you're crafting the premiums, which I'm pretty sure is a thing you could do. I'm not really sure. I think you have to actually buy the. Yeah, okay, you can't craft. I don't think you could destroy them either. I don't even know. Back before, I think you could do that, but anyways, doesn't matter. Wait, before. 2-cost fire relic. It's called Reactor Forge. At the start of your turn, you get +1 power this turn, then you increase its ability by 1. At the end of your turn, you take a damage for each power Reactor Forge gave you this turn. Okay, so if you get this down on turn 2, and I think this isn't as much of a modifier card. I think this is a little bit different. This is like maybe Praxis would like this. I don't think as much Stone Scar, because right now I feel like, I mean, there could be a Stone Scar deck that would like it. Like, yeah, like there could be a Stone Scar deck that likes this. But, pretty sure the X cost fire spell that deals damage equal to X, I think it's called Fire Blast. I want to look it up. I want to look up the card. I'm going to look it up. You know, might as well. We're here. We have time. We have time. You know. I'm just going to look up X. Deal X. It's loading. Okay. Okay. Fire Blast. See, I'm looking like a fool over here trying to figure out what the name of this darn card is. Flame Blast. Hey, see, it knew. It knew. Okay, so it's called Flame Blast. Yeah, so this is the card. Now this card, no, let's go back. Let's go back, get back to the card we were just talking about. This card is definitely a way to accelerate a little bit on what that does. You can also get, like, if you, like, now, still talking about constructed, but maybe, like, towards the throne side, because there's not a lot of, like, Grenadin synergies. There's some big Grenadin cards, like, and this screams Grenadin, like, with the art and everything. There's some big Grenadin that you like to get out that kind of, like, you don't mind taking damage as long as you're getting that kind of Grenadin engine going. Other reasons you want to play this. If you're playing Skycrack, like big stuff, like even dragons, like this is pretty good. Like if you don't have a solid 2-drop for your Skycrack deck and you're playing like big Skycrack, this will accelerate you pretty quickly. The only thing I could see this being like having a big problem with is being like a late game draw. You're just kind of like, okay, next turn I'll get a power and take a damage. One, you're not wanting to take damage at that point because you've probably already been taking damage, and two, you don't really need the additional power that much. But it's just like Power Stone basically at that point, or additional power. Now if you have like a deck that like is like, you know, able to use relics or needs relics or sacrifice relics in addition to the other synergies, this might be on point. But this is definitely an interesting build around. Okay, now this card's awesome. I'm very fond of Defective Flame. So it's a 4-cost fire 4/4 Grenadin with decay. Alright, when a spell is played directly on Defective Flame, it deals 3 damage to the enemy player. So this is the kind of card that makes you want to, like, you know, play it in Rakano. Use Rampage on this thing, use Finest Hour, and just like blast your opponent. There's a card called Huru Envoy that's like a Justice card that lets you draw cards when spells are played on it. Or it might just be when spells played. I have to double check on that. But this card just, and the thing is if you play this and your opponent has a weapon, you can make it so they can't get it out of their discard or out of their void. It'll just make the weapon super small because of the decay. That's also a 4/4 decay. So this card is awesome. This card is definitely, like, I mean, for a 4-drop, this is great. Now, as far as 4-drops go, not necessarily just in fire, but like in general, if this thing tussles with one of the most legendary, and I mean legendary, 4-drops in the game, Sandstorm Titan. Darude Sandstorm Titan. Anyways, it leaves the Sandstorm Titan as 1/2 afterwards with endurance. Things can't fly, and then if you play a spell, well, no, you can't deal. The damage is only players, but still, if you did that and got your value off of like dealing damage to an opponent with a spell buff and this, like of course you could also buff this with a spell, then you get rid of the Sandstorm Titan. But now it's kind of a little bit more situational. But yeah, even if it does with the Sandstorm Titan, it leaves a nasty burn, you know. And this is not a defective flame bot. This is a great flame bot. Okay, so then back with the heavy influence cards. Not just the 3 fire here. It's 5 cost 3 fire. It's called Coronation Ritual, and it's a fast spell. This is what the fast spell does. You got to sacrifice a unit, and you get to play 2 incarnations with attack and health equal to the sacrificed unit's attack. Alright? Now if you have 5 time, they get plus attack plus health equal to the sacrificed unit's health. And if you have 5 justice, they get its battle skills. So, this is a very strange version of kind of the primal mirror image effect, it feels like. A reason I think it actually could probably see some play, or like the reason I think it's valuable, one, it's because it's fast, but you could do it in a turn to make 2 big units. I would say most likely it's good in a Rakano deck versus all 3 of these factions. Like, I mean, I don't know about all 3 of these factions being ran at the same time, especially with that heavy influence. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, so I could see Rakano liking this, because you could play around with the battle skills a little bit, and make sure that you get good battle skills, and like that matters. Like, that could be the main part of the unit that you're copying, I guess. And like you want high attack units, so that like you're making 2 units with just like Inferno Zeal, for example. You get 2 8/8s. That's crazy. Now, at the same time, like, yeah, it's 2 8/8s. That's pretty good. And then giving it, I think it's Overwhelm. Is what Inferno Zeal has? Yeah. So, or on that note, there's other build arounds. There is a Velociraptor that can't attack, except for like sights, I believe, or something like that. It's like a very strange 2 cost 6/6 unit, but like you gotta silence it or do all this kind of stuff. This gets around that too, because this makes 2 6/6s for 5, so a total of 7 for 12 attack, 12 health. And then in this case, if you, oh my gosh, if you were playing this in practice with that card, and of course you'd want to run other cards that synergize with it. It's like it's like that's the basis of the deck. You find that and other kind of jank stuff that works with it, and with this, like cards that silence your own cards, that kind of stuff. Um, you know, and then if you're in praxis, it makes sack of that unit, you get 2 12/12s. That's crazy. I'm just like blown away by that. Yeah. So I mean, it fits into both of the subcategories. I just don't see you wanting all 3. I mean, it wouldn't be bad, but it's also an interesting build around. I feel like that's a good thing about this campaign already. Is we're already seeing like 2 interesting build arounds and a couple of really solid cards you just would include. Like say there's a couple rares in the mono fire deck you just don't want to build, or you want to spice it up and use some different cards in your mono fire deck. That's great. Or if you want to say, hey, I want to build an all decay deck. There you go. Let's get on the next card. Now we're going into time. Here's All Head Ascending. It's 2 time for a 3/3 warrior dinosaur. And this is another part of the cycle. The ascending cycle. But there are units that have the ascending text after their name. So this, once you have 4 time, it's got 4, 6, 8. So the first one, 4. Your attacking units have decay. This is awesome. That is so cool. Stats are great already. Already 2 costs with 4 time. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Dawnwalker with the 4 time, you know. But everything getting decay means that this combat's gonna matter, and it's in mono time. It feels like a red card. Like I feel like decay is I mean not red. It feels like a fire ability. You know what I mean? Like attacking units have decay. That just feels super fire. But at the same time, it's fire of the time gets a. So at 6 time, this gets +2/+2 in overall. Not quite as good as +2/+2 in quick draw in my opinion. But I mean, if it's gonna be a 5/5, might as well be overwhelm. And then 8. When you play another unit, all head gets that unit's attack and health. Wow. I mean, that's the second ability and the third ability, they're a little bit harder to get, like a lot harder. And they're worth it. They're worth it. Like, I mean, if you're in mono time, but you don't really have to be. I think if you can get that first ability off, you can kind of build around that with having some, units that want to have decay. Um, yeah, I think this card's great. I think this card's awesome. Any way that you can get decay, I'm great with. I like decay a lot. Okay, so this is a card I actually got to play with a little bit. Did some testing. Well, not testing, but some playing. Well, I did, yeah, testing with new cards in the draft format. Unfortunately, my recording got jacked up. So not gonna be showing that, but mainly because it's just not a complete video worth the content. It got messed up in the middle. But now I'm ranting. Hermitgardner, okay? Gotta play with this card. It is awesome. Now, might just be in the context of the Scion draft, so there's that. But you get now this is how I evaluate it then. It's a 5 cost 6/5. Okay, so we've seen that before. The Towering Terror's on. It's perfectly playable as kind of like a new car, like a new player's top end of a time deck that's kind of aggressive / mid-range built. That's great. But you also get 2 0/2s. And in addition to that, if you got turn to seeded, this gives a buff to those seeds by making, of course, the 2 0/2s it created, and any turn to seeds that you've been turned to seed. You know what I'm talking about. Those have a 2-turn reduction on their ultimate, so they become 5/7s. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. Altogether, I think this is a pretty decent top end. Also, like, this guy's fork only has 2 prongs. That kind of messes with me. Like, a pitchfork usually has like 5, and that's a really cool lamp. Those are the 2 things I have to note about the art. Not too much to say about this card. So this landing on turn 5 and then turn 8, if he survives, which I mean, if they invest resources in destroying him, no big deal. You have to wait 2 more turns, and they have to find ways to deal with your 0/2. So they board clear, they board clear. But once those things turn to 5/7s, it's getting crazy. Now they turn to seed, they don't expect you to get a Hermitgardner out. Like, that's pretty great too. I feel like his actual ability isn't that bad. Like, the 0/2s are just chump blockers. They kind of like, for kind of defensive Elysian deck with some top end, like, this would be a good card, I feel like. Or another thing that happened a lot was there's a Clock of Stolen Hours, and it gives everything +1/+1. And of course, there was also Zen and Obelisk. I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's any obelisk effects in Expedition, but of course there's a bunch. There's the cornucopia thing. What is it? Horn of Plenty. Um, there's the Zen and Obelisk. There's the clock. All kinds of obelisk effects. I'm pretty sure the Majestic Skies might be the only one. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But this card plays really well with team buffs. When everything is getting buffed, it's in business. I know that the Barbarian Outpost is that gives +1 attack. It's in play right now for Expedition. Almost guarantee it. So I mean, yeah, it's another great reason. You get 3 units for 5. This is a pretty solid card. This card's got some potential. Definitely. I mean, not necessarily a build around. It's just like kind of like a bread and butter, big beefy unit. No abilities, which is pretty cool. I like when they can build an interesting, fun card and not even have to step into the battle skill section, which I love battle skills. Battle skills are great. You can do it without doing it. Like, it's a whole card. Even the things it create. Well, there's overwhelm. Okay. I spoke too soon. But still, the little seeds get overwhelmed. Okay, next. We got another one of those triple faction cards with some real heavy influence. So it goes into basically two faction combinations. You got either, I mean, you could do all three, I'm sure, but it's either Combray or Elysian most of the time. So baseline, you got your 5 cost. It's not a fast spell, just a normal speed spell with triple time. Units get deadly and overwhelm. Okay. So how deadly and overwhelm works, if I recall correctly, it deals 1 damage to the unit to kill it, and then all the like, say it's a 5/1 with deadly, and they block with a 3/3. So it'll deal 1 damage out of its 5 attack to the defending unit. That unit's gonna die. Of course your unit will die too, but you're going to overwhelm them with 4 damage. So this can be a huge swing of damage. If only it was a fast spell. Maybe in development it was a fast spell, and they had to change it back because it was too super powerful. Okay, so we got 5 Justice. If you get 5 Justice influence, when a unit attacks this turn, you get a +2/+2 weapon on it. Let's see what the... Oh, Crown Watch Longsword. Interesting. And then finally, if you have 5 Primal, your units go Berserk. Huh. Now, all your units getting +2/+2, deadly and overwhelmed, that's pretty crazy, even if it has to be at slow speed. And then all your units getting attacked twice, I feel like that's not as impactful as the +2 weapons. Like, I mean, it can deal more damage if you're attacking to an undefended board. But if you're sort of behind or at kind of a parity level, it's not going to be as effective as the weapons. I feel like this is, like, possibly one of, like, I would say the less powerful of the cycle. Comparing it directly to Coronation Ritual, I feel like Coronation Ritual is more of like a build around for like a sacrifice deck. This definitely has like some pushing power, but it feels kind of like it feels the same kind of role as like a rally. It's a finisher. Instead of being, again, it feels like the factions that try to go into, maybe Combray it would be better suited for Combray possibly, because you get like efficiently statted, low cost units, then you get to 5 and you just make them have overwhelm and deadly. You still a ton of damage that turn, possibly, unless they have spot removal for a couple units. You're gonna want a bunch of little units going through with at least like 2 or 3 attack, you know, each. And if you're in Combray, I mean, if they're getting +2/+2 weapons, they could all be 1/1s for all you care. Doesn't matter at that point. So yeah, I think it's got kind of an interesting. It's an interesting fact. It might be a bit too expensive for 5. You know, at 5, you know, for that kind of effect. But we'll see. This is another card I got to see a little bit of in the preview event. Okay, so just to read over it, it's a Mandrake, a new Mandrake. This is a pretty big Mandrake too. It's 6 cost, double time, 8/4. It's called Kudzu. Overwhelm. And when this dies, if it dies on your turn, you get to draw it from your void. This, and it does go to your void though, because it has Entomb. This would be interesting with like Void Drummer, where it gets that bonus, because it's really easy to get it back from the void. It pulls itself back up from the void, and it's got overwhelmed, so if you're making it big with all these enters the void effects, this thing is going to be a cool build around for those kind of decks. I'm interested to see what stuff is in Expedition for that deck, because I think it would be fun. It would be definitely Zenon, and I think Zenon's already powerful, but if you kind of focus around a recursion deck, with stuff that makes your recursion better, that's been kind of like the fatal flaw, I feel like, in those in early recursion decks, at least the way I used to build them. Instead of focusing on getting a really powerful effect back with like, I think it's Grasping Shadows, but with like, instead of focusing on one big effect that you're trying to get, it was like, how can I make my void the most powerful thing, and then just keep bringing stuff back with Dark Return. Now there's a lot more effects that can bring stuff back, varying quality, but the bonus bonuses that you get, like this is the card you want them with, not a normal recursion card, because this is like 2 of the pieces of that 3-part engine that you're trying to get going in one, which I think is cool. Not to mention, it's just like a really efficient, like you can't lose card advantage. If they remove this on their turn though, that's kind of, that just happens, but the fast removal, it's pretty, you give this thing charge too, it's also kind of nice. Okay, now we're on a Justice. 1 and a Justice for a curse. At the start of your turn, kill the cursed unit. When the cursed unit hits you, sacrifice pending execution. So you have to make sure this unit doesn't hit you, or it's not going to be destroyed. It's an interesting effect. They're going to do their best to get it. So it's not as good against evasive units, but it doesn't matter what size unit it is, and it can take it out. It's better against utility units that like have that are harder to kill, like a 5, or let's say like a 4/6 kind of unit with a strong utility effect, like a build around basically. Even like, let's say for example Mary's Mandrake. There's not. That's not. You don't want to kill Mary's Mandrake. I mean you do, but I like Mary's Mandrake. What's the life? Never mind. Let's see. The 2-cost Paladin, for example. Vanquish can't kill that. The Tribal Paladin. I can't remember the names of some of these cards, but anyways, it's good for getting utility pieces that you can't get with other Justice removal. It's very situational and very odd, but 1-cost removal is definitely worth noting. I don't know how good it's going to be, but it fills a role in certain metas. Okay, so now we have Cura Ascending. 2-cost Justice 3/2. It's an unseen, and we got of course the usual rigmarole here. You got your 4 Justice, your 6 Justice, and your 8 Justice ability, just like all the other ascending units. So this is interesting. This is a play on another version of a card that was user created, but this isn't user created. So they've continued the character, which I think is very interesting. Anyways, back to what we were doing. Justice. When you play a spell directly on Kira, draw a card. Okay, so for Justice, this is another unit that likes spells being directly played on them. Hold the phone, because we just saw something like that. Like, am I going nuts? Like, what? Like, what was the card? What was the card that... When you play another unit... Yeah, of course. I was like, eyes glazed over when I looked at Defective Flame. Yeah, Defective Flame is another unit that wants you to play spells directly on them. So that's kind of, we're seeing kind of that, maybe an archetype or like a build forming together with some Rakano, especially with Friends in Low Places. That's a good card for this. Even after the nerf, of course it's strong. So drawing cards, so it's kind of also an allusion to Kira, because the permanent buffs that Kira gets, like it's similar from direct spells. This is giving you permanent card advantage. It's pretty nice, which is great. Making her at 6 influence, she gets to be a 5/4 endurance. That's a great stat line. And finally, at 8, when she attacks, give another attacking unit her attack and health. Now I like that. That's awesome. So it'll basically make other units get a permanent +5/+2 in endurance boost at least. So yeah, and if you're playing spells like if you're playing 3 factions and you go with Elysian, the what's the evolution card that gives flying or endurance a +1/+1? Can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it just got I think it's in Expedition currently. Accelerated Evolution, I think, is the card. It's very good. With her, especially. Because you're drawing cards and it has Echo, so it's just awesome. Okay. I think this is a very, very good version of Kira. So I like that a lot. And also the art is excellent. Yeah, I think it'll definitely, we'll see play. Mono Justice is, this is interesting. But I could also see it possibly getting played in Rakano. Okay, next one. This is our 3 faction card, which is, in this case, it's normal speed spell. 5 cost, Justice, 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 Silver Knight. Not like the sword wielding, horse riding cavalier knight. It's like Silver Knight is in like the opposite of day. Kill a ready enemy unit. Gain its attack in armor. That's interesting. So you're going to use this on your turn, of course, because it's not a fast spell. What am I talking about? Of course you can use it on your turn. So kill a ready enemy unit. So not good against charge. It's good against high attack units. Especially if you're in an armory build. That's weird. That's interesting though. If you got 5 primal, when a unit goes to the enemy void this turn, draw a card. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so in Huru you get that card. You get this is basically a free card if you're paying 5. And a kill spell, so that's really good. And then also, alternatively, I would say, if you have 5 shadow, kill an exhausted enemy unit, discard its attack and cards from their deck. Maybe Argenport Mill would really want that. I don't really like that second effect. It makes you have to be using it even more situationally if they're ready and an exhausted enemy unit. So that means they have to have 2 units. I think drawing the card's pretty darn good. I don't think this card is too great. It's a weird, wonky, expensive removal, but it is 2 for 1 with either effect if you can find the right situation for it. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so this is kind of like the card that they've been using as like the hallmark unit that I've been seeing in a lot of the pictures and art and stuff. So we're finally getting to see what this card does. This is the first time I've ever seen this card. 7 cost Justice, Justice, 5/6 gold plate Valkyrie. It's a Valkyrie. They are Valkyrie, and they have flying, endurance, summon. Play a unit with cost 2 or less from your market. Now I like that effect. That is super cool. Play with the market. So this is a market card, but only 2 or less cost units, and you don't get it till turn 7 unless you're ramping. I like the basically the unit that it gives you baseline. 5/6 flying endurance is great. And I think it's pretty efficient having any 2-drop. You could build your market around just having this card if you didn't want to run other market cards. It's an interesting choice. Very, very odd top end. Very strange card, like for a finisher, but I think it's good. If not, at least it's interesting and fun. It just reminds me kind of like it's odd. It reminds me of Veteran Mercenary. The 5 cost I think is a 4/4. And it gives you a random card, but only if you only have one type of influence. It's kind of like a big, kind of odd unit that gives you a card. So this is a lot better because you can build your market at least to some extent around that idea. And you can get a utility unit or just an efficient 2 cost unit. I think that's an interesting card. This campaign doesn't seem to have it has some powerful cards, but doesn't seem to just be jam-packed of ridiculous cards. Which I don't think, if I was just looking at Into Shadow recently, and it's kind of the same situation. There's some stunners in that set, but there's also a lot of cards I didn't even remember existed. Also, this art is awesome. Looks like I know it's probably a primal. I mean, it's a primal card, so it's probably a person from the Skycrag tribe, but they kind of look like Water Nation like Waterbender or something. I've been watching the original Avatar on Netflix lately. So, huh. Anyways, Dazzle, 2 costs primal, fast spell. And this card's pretty interesting. I saw a good bit of this around the packs of the draft preview. You get a choice here. Stun an enemy unit with cost 2 or more, then plunder. Or negate an enemy spell with cost 2 or more, then plunder. Stun an enemy unit with cost 2 or more, then plunder, or negate an enemy spell with cost 2 or more, then plunder. I think this is a good card. If it said 2 or less, it'd be a lot worse, but 2 or more, that's pretty significant. Like, you're missing a couple of things, but it's only zeros and ones that you're missing. And the fact that it kind of plunders to, like, it's not drawing a card, but it can turn a useless power card into drawing a card for 2, making this a 4 cost, draw a card. Okay, not going there. Basically, there is a way for you to get your card back and a stun, which is a good card. It's just a nice thing it's broken down in installments too, but as far as cost effective for the first half of this card, I don't know. Now if you negate like a harsh rule with this and plunder, that seems really good. Now it's always gonna be like that. You might just use it almost like as a protect, like you're just getting rid of one target of removal or a combat trick that your opponent's using. Well, I mean, these are cards that would cost less than 2 sometimes. You get the kind of the concept. Stuff that you don't want to be cast against you, just this will surprise your opponent and be worthy of going into the deck. I think it's more leaning towards like a heavy primal build, but I think it's definitely worth considering. Okay, now here's another one. We got Drawl, Ascending, Giant Shaman. So 2 primal, 1/3. Okay. Now if you've got 4, when draw attacks, draw a card, discard it unless it's a spell. Okay, that's an interesting card. That's an interesting ability. So far, that wouldn't give us too impressive of a unit. Yeah. But at 6 primal, we get the +2/+2 in Berserk. Okay, that makes this a 3/5 Berserk. So far, this is not as impressive as the other ones we've seen, I'd have to say. And then finally, when we got 8 primal, when you play a spell, deal its cost to the enemy player. Oh, okay. This would be really good with Channel of Tempest. Yeah, that's a lot of primal influence. If you're mono primal or very heavy primal, because it's more likely the case primal tends to be kind of a enhancement color or support color. So 8 primal, you know, when you play a spell, deal its cost to enemy player. You could play a bunch of small spells too, but that's if it did it to like enemy unit or player, that might be a little better. But I think it's mainly just for a finisher. Like if you're 8 primal, yeah, that's a lot to get to. Not super impressed with draw ascending, honestly. I don't think it's bad, and maybe I'm missing something here. I like to draw a card. Draw spells, like that could be it kind of seems similar to, yeah, it seems like it could be good. Okay, so Fierce Protection, okay. We got another 5 cost. This one's primal spell, not fast spell, just normal speed. You and your units get Aegis. Oh, I like this already. It's an interesting card. I wish it was fast already, of course. Now if you if you have 5 fire influence, kill each enemy weapon. Each weapon in your deck gets +5 attack. That's absurd. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay. Kind of an odd Skycrag Armory feel with that ability, which is interesting if not like the bombdiggity.com. You know, like it's not necessarily 100% what we're looking for. But it's pretty Interesting. It's a very odd build run. It's not something you see very normally. Is Sky Crag, Armory. Okay, so that's the next ability. 5 Shadow. Play a card from the enemy void. It gets void bound. I think I think it gets Aegis. I'm not quite sure though. If it doesn't, that's weird. But it should go below. The you and your units get Aegis should go below that card. I don't know. I think the card should get Aegis that you get from the enemy void. That makes this a little better. Huh. Overall, I think there might be potential here, but it's just very odd. Where are we? Oh, right here. Let's move on. I think it's not bad. It's just it's gonna take me some convincing to figure out where to to actually run the card. It's just odd. There's a lot going on with it though. So I mean, I'm sure there's some ways it's powerful. 5 power 4/5 serpent. It's got flying. Isra loyal mount. Flying, and when one of your units hits a player, Isra gets +1 attack. On summon, your other units get flying this turn. Okay, so this is kind of for your like there's the 3-cost reckless rare Yeti that relies on, I think, evokes if you have a flying unit. So in the kind of non-flying but also flying deck, this is kind of another one of those cards. It also wants evasion, though. So maybe like a Feln unblockable deck. Then you don't really care about giving your other units flying. Unless it's like that 4/4 Minotaur that gives something unblockable. But oof, now we're getting wonky. Okay, it's definitely an interesting flyer. I'd probably test it out in Elysian Flyers. Maybe build a special deck for it. Now, this is another card I've seen a good bit of, and I think this is a very interesting card. This is a Kantha Ascending Elf Dragon for 2 Shadow. It's a 2/1. Once you have your 4 Shadow, when a Kantha attacks, play a 2/1 Dark Elf. Okay, so kind of like bringing in the tribe to attack. Interesting. Now, there's a 6 cost, or 6, man, I keep saying that. Once you have 6 influence, this becomes a 4/3 flyer. Now that's amazing, especially with the first ability, because the stack action where you're getting 2/1s, that's great. And at the end, if you get 8 influence, when a kantha hits the enemy player, they sacrifice a unit. So all these abilities are very synergistic. I think this is a lot better than draw we just looked at, just personally. This unit's like an army in one card, basically, or can be. Great card. Dr. Zstrom. This is a fun card, but you can't really be playing against a control deck. Because your enemy has to have units in their void for this to be kind of playable. 4-cost 2/6 just doesn't do it against control. But I think it stops aggro and a couple of the Zenin cards dead in their tracks. Deadly can't. I should probably read the card. 4-cost Shadow 2/6 Cultist. Enemy damage can't be deadly, and summon. Play a unit with cost 5 or less from the enemy void. It gets charged and flying. Sacrifice at the end of turn. Okay, yeah. So, an interesting card. Kind of like a Haunting Scream, but only for the void. And we got a 5-cost Shadow 5/3 weapon. When the wielder hits the enemy player, steal one of their relics with cost 4 or more. Okay. So, Distracting Flashbang is whenever the wielder hits the enemy player, steal one of their relics with cost 4 or more. So that's just straight up take as in an obelisk. That could be very, very interesting. It goes on a unit though. Okay. I think there's some potential to get some crazy value with it, but it's just not always a possibility. Also, I don't know. Now we got Pull into Nightmares. 5 Shadow, Shadow, Shadow. Play a unit with cost 5 or less from your void. It gets +1/+1. And then 5 fire. It gets double damage. And then 5 time. Put into Nightmares. It is. What was it? Play a unit with cost 5 or less from your void. It gets +1/+1. Okay. So that's not too bad. If you get a 5 cost 1, that's how much you paid anyways. You're basically playing it from your void, but it gets a little bonus. Also, 5 fire, you, your unit gets double damage, like I said. I believe I said. And then Pentuple, which would be like 5 times the time. Pull into nightmares pull into nightmares is fast. Okay, so for 5 time, makes it no fast spell. Okay, for Zena, this could be interesting. You could bring a unit out. It doesn't come in exhausted, so you could just bring a unit out of the void and block and destroy something. That's interesting. Then finally, Broken Contract. It is a power with no faction. And when you draw this, if you have a unit in your void, you get to play a 4/1 sellsword that can't block. So that's a really cool card. If you liked the video, go ahead and click a like and subscribe. I really appreciate you. This was a fun one to film because I got to look at all the new cards.